There are places that exist only on the fringes of memory, half-remembered nightmares cloaked in the hush of the woods, waiting for someone foolish enough to come back. Black Hollow was one of those places. The road to the town was barely more than a gravel scar winding through endless pine. The trees loomed like sentinels, skeletal fingers clawing at the sky. Evelyn Gray gripped the steering wheel tighter, her knuckles pale under the washed-out sun. The air grew heavier with each mile. No radio signal, no phone service, just the drone of her tires and the growing sense that something unseen had taken notice of her return. Evelyn hadn't been back in over 20 years, not since the night her sister vanished. Anna had disappeared on a storm-slick evening, barefoot, her voice echoing through the trees as she screamed something Evelyn could never forget. "It's in the ground." They searched for weeks. Nothing. No footprints. No body. No sign she'd ever been there at all. Her parents crumbled beneath the weight of it. Her father drowned himself in whiskey. Her mother spoke to shadows that answered back. By 17, Evelyn had fled Black Hollow like the town itself might reach out and devour her next. But now, she was back. A letter had arrived 3 weeks ago, typed, unsigned. "The truth is buried beneath the roots. Anna is still here. Come alone." She'd ignored it at first. Burned it, even. But something kept whispering in her dreams, drawing her into that familiar, cloying darkness. So she took leave from work, packed a bag, and drove until the air tasted like old earth and pine needles. The town hadn't changed. It felt fossilized, sun-bleached and wrong. Windows were boarded. Shops stood abandoned. The old church's steeple leaned like a crooked finger. As she passed the sign at the town limits, "Welcome to Black Hollow, Est. 1804. The W was smeared in something dark, like dried blood or rust. She didn't stop at her childhood home. She couldn't bear it yet. Instead, she drove to the old forest trail, the one that led to the hollow itself. A sunken glade surrounded by ancient trees so thick they blocked out the sky. Anna used to play there. Said she could hear the whispering man when the wind blew through the roots. The trees greeted her with silence. The forest was unnaturally still. She stood at the edge of the trail, staring into the shadowed path. The air was thick with rot and damp leaves. Something moved beneath her skin, a memory or warning. She stepped in. The path twisted like it remembered her feet. Her boots sank slightly into the mossy soil, too soft, like flesh. She walked for 20 minutes before the hollow revealed itself. A circular depression in the earth, surrounded by gnarled oaks with black bark and no leaves. A large stone stood in the center, covered in symbols that had not been there before, curved lines, spirals, and crude stick figures etched deep into its surface. As she approached, a low murmur rose from beneath her feet. It was subtle at first, like the whisper of water, but it grew louder with every step toward the stone. She crouched down, placed her hand on the dirt. It pulsed. A voice, not heard, but felt, moved inside her skull. "She's still beneath." Evelyn staggered back, her mouth dry. The murmuring didn't stop. It followed her all the way to the motel, a dilapidated relic on the edge of town that smelled of mildew and cigarettes. The desk clerk, a gaunt woman with cataract-clouded eyes, didn't ask for ID. "She's waiting for you," the woman rasped as she handed over the key. Evelyn didn't ask who. That night, the whispers returned, louder, more coherent. She dreamt of roots growing from her fingers, her mouth packed with soil. Something moved under her bed. When she woke, her hands were dirty, nails caked with earth. She hadn't left the bed. Then the knocks began, at 3:13 a.m. sharp. 3 soft raps, always from the floor beneath her. The second night, she knocked back. Something giggled. Evelyn did not sleep the rest of that night. She sat upright in the mildew-stained bed, clutching the motel's scratchy blanket, staring at the floorboards where the knocks had come from. The giggle, it hadn't been childish or playful. It was too breathy, too wet. Like someone laughing through a mouth full of mud. Morning came reluctantly, the sun little more than a suggestion behind a curtain of fog that clung to Black Hollow like a shroud. Evelyn opened the motel room door and found a dead bird on the threshold, its eyes gone, beak twisted open in a silent scream. No tracks, no blood, just the offering. She kicked it away and slammed the door shut. There was no one else staying at the motel. She hadn't seen another soul since arriving, aside from the cataracted woman behind the front desk, who now sat in the lobby with her back to Evelyn, muttering to the dusty wallpaper in a voice that sounded not entirely human. Evelyn drove to her childhood home. The house sat at the end of a cracked driveway, sagging under the weight of time. The shutters hung loose, the siding blistered and gray. But the door was pristine. Freshly painted, bright red. A color so stark against the rest of the decay it made her stomach twist. She stepped inside. The air hit her like a hand, thick, warm, and humming. She half expected to see her mother at the kitchen table, whispering to herself with bleeding gums. Or her father hunched over the fireplace, carving faces into the wooden mantel with a steak knife. But the house was empty. Mostly, there were signs of recent activity. Footprints in the dust, bare, small. Like a child's. Evelyn followed them upstairs, down the narrow hallway to what had once been Anna's room. The door creaked open. The wallpaper was still pale pink, now peeling like shedskin. The bed was made. On the pillow sat a small doll, handmade, crudely sewn from burlap and red thread, its mouth stitched shut. Its eyes were black buttons. Mismatched. One had a crack through it, like a spiderweb. The doll's arms were bound behind its back with twine. A note lay next to it, written in a tight, erratic scrawl. I made her quiet. She wouldn't stop screaming. Evelyn backed out of the room slowly, bile rising in her throat. As she turned, she heard it again, just under the floorboards. Whispers. Not one voice, but many. Dozens, maybe hundreds, murmuring just beyond the reach of clarity. She ran down the stairs, but as she reached the living room, she froze. A figure stood at the far end of the hallway. Small, barefoot, wearing a white nightgown soaked at the hem. Long black hair hung over her face. She twitched once, then took a slow step forward. Evelyn bolted out the front door and didn't stop running until she reached the car. She didn't drive away. She couldn't. Somehow, she knew, she wasn't allowed to leave yet. That evening, she returned to the hollow. The sun was bleeding into the trees, turning the sky a deep, blood-orange bruise. As she approached the glade, she noticed something new. The stone had been moved. It now sat on its side, revealing a circular hole beneath it. A tunnel, barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. She should have run. Every nerve in her body screamed to run. Instead, she pulled a flashlight from her bag and lowered herself into the earth. The tunnel descended steeply, the soil pressing close around her body. The flashlight beam wavered as she crawled deeper, illuminating twisted roots and strange etchings scratched into the walls. Words in a language she didn't recognize, interspersed with crudely drawn symbols, eyes, spirals, gaping mouths. After what felt like hours, the tunnel opened into a chamber. The air was wet and cold. The walls were covered in more symbols, some painted, some burned in. In the center stood a wooden chair, its surface stained and splintered. Shackles hung from its arms. But what drew her attention was what sat in the corner. A pile of dolls. Dozens of them, each one unique, different fabrics, buttons, hair. But they all had one thing in common. Their mouths were sewn shut. And above them, carved deep into the wall, were the words. The quiet are kept. Suddenly, her flashlight flickered. Then died. In the darkness, the murmuring grew louder, closer. No longer muffled. Now it sounded like breathing. Wet, labored breathing from behind her. Something crawling. Then, so close she could feel the heat of it, something whispered into her ear. Anna never stopped screaming. Evelyn bolted. The darkness swallowed her panic, her breath tearing through the silence like a blade. She clawed through the tunnel, blind, the taste of earth and rot thick on her tongue. Something followed, close, too close, its breath moist and ragged against her heels. Fingers grazed her boot once, twice. She burst from the hole like a corpse surfacing from a grave, the night wind slapping her face as she gasped for air. The forest was no longer quiet. The trees creaked and moaned, as if alive. Whispers rustled the leaves even though the air was still. Shadows twitched in the corners of her vision. She stumbled backwards into the woods, heart hammering, until she reached the clearing's edge. But something was wrong. There were more trees now. The path was gone. The forest had changed. As she turned, breathless and shaking, she saw her again. The girl in the white nightgown stood at the base of a tree, her face still hidden behind a curtain of wet, matted hair. She was pointing toward Evelyn's feet. Evelyn looked down. A single doll lay on the ground. New, freshly sewn. It looked like her. Same jacket, same hair color, Same scar on the lip from when she fell off her bike as a child. But the mouth was sewn shut. And the button eyes were bleeding. Back at the motel, Evelyn scrubbed herself in the rust-stained bathroom sink until her skin burned. The murmuring hadn't stopped. Not entirely. It was there beneath everything. Beneath the hum of the old fridge. Beneath the whine of the faulty light fixture. Beneath the pulse in her own ears. She didn't know how it had followed her. But she could feel it now, in her chest. Like something crawling behind her ribs. Like a memory she hadn't made. She sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. The doll was still in her coat pocket. She hadn't put it there. At 3:13 a.m., the knocks came again. 3 slow, deliberate raps from beneath the floor. Then silence. Then, thump, thump, thump. The whole bed jolted upward as if something massive had slammed against the floorboards. Evelyn screamed and fell backward off the mattress, scrambling for the door. She threw it open, and the hallway was pitch black. No lights. Just the distant, rhythmic sound of digging. She turned to flee, and saw the woman from the front desk standing behind her, motionless. Her eyes were no longer clouded but wide and jet black, like twin pits into nothing. "You shouldn't have gone down there," the woman whispered. Her voice was layered, more than one voice speaking at once. Evelyn backed away. "What is this place?" she asked, voice cracking. The woman smiled, teeth yellow and too many. "You brought it with you." Like she did. Like all of them do. Who? The woman didn't blink. The ones who hear the murmur. It speaks through blood. And once you listen, it never stops talking. She didn't sleep. The next day, she visited the town library. It was abandoned. Dust blanketed every surface, and the smell of mold made her gag. But in the basement, she found something. A file cabinet full of clippings and old photographs. Obituaries. Missing persons. Dozens of children. All from Black Hollow. All vanished between 1947 and 2005. The photos were chilling, smiling faces, some barely toddlers. All with something in their eyes that looked like fear. Or maybe recognition. One article caught her breath. 7-year-old girl missing after claiming to hear voices in the woods. Beneath the headline, a black and white photo of Anna. The article quoted her last words to their mother. "He's under the tree. He told me your voice is wrong." Evelyn dropped the paper. On the back of the page, scrawled in black ink, was something that wasn't part of the article. Not all who vanish are taken. Some dig deeper. Some become the roots. That night, Evelyn returned to the hollow again. She didn't know why. Maybe to confront it. Maybe to find Anna's bones and finally bury them. Maybe just to end this. The tunnel was wider now. The soil around it breathed, a slow, rising fall, like the earth itself inhaled her presence. She crawled in once more. This time, she wasn't alone. As she slid through the dark, hands pressed against the walls. Dozens of them, some small, some too long, fingers slick with moisture. They caressed her hair, tugged at her coat, traced her spine. The chamber was different. The dolls were gone. In their place stood Anna. But not as she remembered. She was taller now. Pale, hair like roots soaked in oil. Her eyes were gone, replaced with writhing holes that blinked slowly, moistly. "Evelyn," she said in a voice like cracked wood. Evelyn couldn't move. "You left me here. You ran into the woods," Evelyn whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I tried to find you." Anna's head twitched sideways, sharp, like something straining against a strain. "He heard me. He spoke to me. He opened my mouth and poured the dark in." She stepped closer. Evelyn fell to her knees. "I'm sorry." Anna knelt beside her. Her breath smelled like decay. "He's hungry, Evie. He needs voices. Screams feed him. Whispers are lullabies. Silence is death." She pressed her mouth against Evelyn's ear. "He wants yours next." Evelyn fled the tunnel as if her life depended on it, and maybe it did. Her knees scraped raw, fingernails broken and caked with soil, her coat torn by unseen claws. Anna's voice chased her all the way up. "Don't stop screaming, Evie. He's listening. He's always listening." She didn't remember driving back to town. She barely remembered falling into bed at the motel, still filthy and shaking, the whispering now a steady, throbbing hum inside her skull. When she closed her eyes, she saw faces, not just Anna's but dozens more. Children, old women, hollow-eyed men with stitched mouths and dirt in their hair, all mouthing something she couldn't quite hear. Until she could speak or be swallowed, she woke to the sound of static. The motel television had turned on by itself, casting a flickering white glow across the room. The screen buzzed, then distorted. For a moment, just before it went black, she saw a face, emaciated, impossibly long, with a mouth that opened and never stopped opening. Then silence. Then the phone rang. It was the old landline, coated in dust. She picked it up, hands trembling. "Hello?" A child's voice answered. "Do you remember the song we used to sing in the hollow?" Evelyn's blood froze. It was Anna's voice, but higher, younger. The way it had sounded that summer, before she vanished. "Ring around the tree stump, voices underground. Whisper once and he will come, twice and you'll be found." 3 times. The voice faltered. Then the line went dead. Evelyn sat frozen for a long time. She remembered the rhyme. Anna had made it up. They used to sing it in the forest. She had thought it was just a game. But Anna had always said it was real. That the whispering man lived under the trees, and that if you chanted his name, he would wake up. She never told Evelyn the name. That morning, Evelyn drove to the church. Or what was left of it. The steeple had collapsed entirely. Vines twisted around the rotting frame, and moss grew between the floorboards. Pews were shattered. The altar was black with soot, as though a fire had been set and left to smolder. Beneath it, she found a trapdoor. She hesitated, then lifted it. A spiral staircase led down into darkness. The air smelled old, like breath trapped underground for centuries. She descended slowly, her flashlight flickering against wet stone. At the bottom, a room lined with bones. Thousands of them, skulls stacked like bricks, femurs and ribs lashed into crude shelves. Every surface was inscribed with symbols. Spirals, circles, open mouths, and on the far wall, scrawled in something dark and still tacky. "He speaks in stillness." There was something in the center of the room. A table. Upon it, a black-bound book. Evelyn opened it, careful not to breathe too deeply. Inside were names. Hundreds. All handwritten. Some she recognized. Her old teachers. Kids from the neighborhood. People long dead or forgotten. And at the bottom of the last page, Evelyn Gray. Her name was still wet. Freshly inked. She slammed the book shut and ran. Back in the car, she found something tucked into the driver's seat. Another doll. This one was Anna again, but altered, her mouth torn open, red thread hanging loose, button eyes replaced by teeth. Tiny, sharp, animal-like. The tag on the doll's neck read, "You listened. Now he knows your name." That night, she didn't stay at the motel. She drove aimlessly, hours on winding roads that never seemed to lead out of town. No matter which direction she took, the signs repeated. "Welcome to Black Hollow. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back." When she finally stopped, it was in front of the cemetery. She didn't remember turning down that road. But her headlights illuminated the rusted gate, barely standing, flanked by 2 statues with eroded faces. They stared blindly at her as she passed between them. Anna's grave was there. Her parents had placed a marker even though there was never a body. It read, Anna Gray, 1991 to 1998. Lost, never forgotten. Evelyn approached it slowly, kneeling beside it. That's when she saw the hole. A small, freshly dug hole beside the marker, no larger than a shoebox. Inside, another doll. This one was unlike the others. Its face was blank. Its head was filled with teeth. Real ones. Human. Children's by the look of them. The doll's chest had been split open, revealing a cavity inside. A voice whispered from it. "There's always room for one more." Evelyn screamed, stumbling backward. Something moved among the gravestones. Crawling, slithering. A long-limbed figure rose from the shadows, tall, too tall, with a skeletal body and no face. Just a gaping hole where its mouth should be, ringed in spiraling teeth. And from the mouth, voices. Dozens, hundreds, screaming, begging, singing that damned song. The thing moved toward her. Evelyn ran. Behind her, the voices chorused. 3 times, and he will take you home. Evelyn didn't know how long she ran. Through woods that didn't seem to end, over roots that snagged her ankles and branches that clawed her face. The air grew thick with fog, pale, milky, and warm like breath on glass. The whispers returned in full force, 1,000 voices woven together in a tapestry of madness. She collapsed beside a stream that ran black as oil. Its surface didn't reflect her. Instead, she saw a forest of hands stretching up from the riverbed, clawing for the surface, writhing beneath the water's skin. One hand had a bracelet she recognized, Anna's. The one Evelyn had made from thread and plastic beads when they were little. It still spelled ANNA, though 2 beads had fallen off. AN. She turned away and vomited. Something rustled behind her. Evelyn spun and saw the girl again, the barefoot one, white nightgown trailing along the leaves. Her face was visible now. It wasn't Anna. It wasn't even human. Her features were stitched crudely, like a doll made from flesh. Her eyes were voids, spinning with spirals, and her mouth was torn from ear to ear in a ragged grin. Evelyn backed away. "Who are you?" she demanded. The girl tilted her head, bird-like. "I'm the whisper you didn't ignore." Then she opened her mouth, and let him speak. The voice that spilled out was not meant for human ears. It was not sound, it was weight, pressure, like the ocean bearing down on your chest in a pitch-black trench. It filled Evelyn's mind with things she could not unsee. Children burying themselves alive, trees growing mouths, dolls weeping blood, a mouth beneath the town, so large it could swallow the world. When the voice stopped, Evelyn was on the ground, bleeding from her ears, her nails broken from clawing at her own scalp. The girl leaned down. "He likes you," she whispered. "He wants to wear your voice." Evelyn screamed. The girl's smile widened. The next day, if it was truly a new day, Evelyn found herself on the edge of town again, parked near the school she once attended. The building was hollow now, windows broken, the flagpole snapped in half. On the wall outside someone had spray painted, "Speak to him 3 times. He'll never let you leave." Evelyn had whispered once, in the hollow. Then again, when she answered Anna's name in the tunnel. The rhyme rang in her skull. "Whisper once and he will come, twice and you'll be found." 3 times. What happened at 3? Was that when he took you? Or, was that when you became him? Inside the school, the halls were wrong. Too long, too narrow. Desks turned upside down. Bloodless handprints smeared along the walls at impossible heights. The sound of something dragging itself down the hall echoed just ahead, slow, rhythmic, wet. She passed a broken classroom mirror and caught a glimpse of herself. Only, it wasn't her. The reflection showed a stitched mouth. Hollow eyes. Her throat moved, but no sound came. She blinked, and it was gone. In the principal's office, Evelyn found a file drawer forced open. Every folder had been shredded except one, left perfectly centered on the desk. The name on the tab. Evelyn Gray. She opened it. Inside were photos of her as a child, dozens she didn't remember being taken. One showed her asleep in bed. Another had been taken through a window. And one, tucked at the very bottom, showed her standing in the hollow with Anna. But Anna's face had been scratched out violently. Over and over. On the back of the photo, a single line was written in blood. "You were supposed to stay with her." The walls began to whisper. That night, she didn't try to run. She returned to the forest. To the hollow. It had changed again. The trees had bent inward, their trunks forming a jagged circle around the clearing like a crown of thorns. The ground pulsed with each step she took, and in the center of it all was a mouth. A real mouth. Enormous. Cracked and blackened. Lips formed from soil and bone. Teeth the size of gravestones. It gaped open silently, the soundless breath of the ancient thing pulling at her clothes, her skin. Around the mouth, they stood. The children. The lost. The voiceless. Anna among them. Their mouths were sewn shut, but they spoke anyway. Through their eyes. Their blood. Their tears. Anna stepped forward. "You've whispered twice," she said, voice barely hers. "You remember now. You left me. You stopped listening." Evelyn fell to her knees. "I didn't know. I was just a kid." It's not about blame," Anna said. "It's about silence. He needs it. He feeds on it." The mouth opened wider. A pressure filled the air. Trees bent. Stones cracked. "You have a choice," Anna said. "What choice?" "Scream, and he'll take you. Stay silent, and become like us." The wind howled through the trees, except it wasn't wind. It was voices. Evelyn rose, trembling. Then she spoke. She said her sister's name. "Anna." And the hollow screamed back. When Evelyn said Anna's name, the earth shuddered. The mouth in the center of the hollow heaved, like a lung struggling to take in air. The wind died. The forest froze. All the figures around the pit, the voiceless children, the hollow-eyed women, the sewn-mouthed men, they turned toward her in unison. And then, they began to weep. Silent tears streamed down their faces. But their mouths remained shut, threads tugging with each attempt at sobbing, some tearing open, others splitting their faces wide. Yet no sound escaped them. Not a breath. Evelyn staggered back, but the ground beneath her pulsed, alive, aware. Then a voice, deep as bedrock and cold as grave soil, spoke from beneath. "You have spoken the third." The hollow screamed, not out loud, not in sound, inside her mind. The voice burrowed straight into her consciousness like maggots into dead flesh. Her knees buckled, her vision fractured. She saw herself from above, as if dangling from a noose in the trees, watching her own body crumple. She speaks. She breaks the seal. She becomes roots shot from the soil and wrapped around her wrists and ankles. Cold, wet tendrils dug into her skin and pulled her toward the mouth. She screamed. For real. For the first time since Anna disappeared. But it wasn't her voice. It was Anna's. "Evelyn, don't stop screaming." And just like that, Evelyn remembered everything. That night, so many years ago, Evelyn hadn't run away when Anna entered the woods. She'd followed. They'd stood at the edge of the hollow together. Anna had whispered something Evelyn couldn't understand. Then the ground had opened, and a black, toothless smile had stretched beneath them. Evelyn had screamed and grabbed her sister's hand. But something else, something beneath, had grabbed Anna's leg, pulled her down. Anna had screamed and begged Evelyn not to let go. But she had. She let go. And Anna had disappeared into the dark with the sound of tearing earth and the echo of her final words. "It's in the ground." Now, the hollow wanted Evelyn, too. The mouth groaned, its lips cracking wider. Inside was not darkness, but an endless coil of bodies, writhing, whispering, turning over one another in a meat-like spiral. And in the very center, a shape. Not a man, not a god, not a devil, something older, something that never had a name until people started whispering. Its body was composed of mouths, hundreds, all overlapping, screaming, laughing, begging. It had no eyes, no limbs, just orifices. It spoke in tongues Evelyn did not know, and yet she understood. "You listened. You opened. You are the vessel." The mouth yawned wide, soil and bones falling into it. Evelyn felt herself dragged forward by the roots, dirt pouring into her mouth, nose, eyes. She couldn't breathe, couldn't scream, couldn't even close her lips. Then, Anna stood in her path. "Let her go," she said. The roots recoiled. The whispering thing writhed. The forest screamed, bending sideways as if caught in a storm. Anna stepped forward, blood running from her button eyes. She remembers. She paid. "Take me instead." The hollow fell still. Then, she must choose. Evelyn, coughing up earth, looked into the face of what had once been her sister. Her voice cracked. I won't let you." Anna smiled sadly. "You already did." She placed a hand on Evelyn's chest. And whispered, "He's yours now." The mouth shrieked. The world cracked open. The trees tore upward, flying like sticks into a cyclonic sky. The ground split. Fire bled through roots. A noise like a billion people gasping at once exploded outward. And then, silence. Evelyn stood alone. The hollow was gone. The woods were empty. No mouth. No Anna. No dolls. No voices. Just wind in the trees and the distant sound of birds. She walked out of the forest in a trance, feet carrying her like a passenger in her own body. Back in town, she found the motel gone. Not collapsed, gone. The space where it had been was now just overgrown weeds and broken glass. She drove. This time, the road let her leave. No more signs. No more looping turns. Just miles and miles until Black Hollow disappeared in the rearview mirror. She returned to her apartment. No one had noticed she was gone. Work resumed. Life resumed. But she did not resume. Because now, Evelyn hears voices everywhere. Not in her head. In the silence. When the shower shuts off. When the car engine dies. When the wind stops blowing. She hears the murmur. It says things. Things she wishes she could forget. Speak, and you let it in. It lives in every whisper. It wears your voice now. And sometimes, when she dreams, she's back at the hollow. Only now, she's the one standing in the tunnel. With stitches across her lips. Holding a doll that looks exactly like you. It's been 3 months. Evelyn no longer remembers what silence used to feel like. Not truly. The murmur is always there now, hiding in breath, in heartbeat, in the space between syllables. And worse, it no longer whispers to her. It whispers through her. She speaks in halts, in half-thoughts. Her voice sometimes cracks into strange syllables she doesn't recognize. At night, she wakes up screaming in languages she's never studied. Her neighbors complain of strange sounds coming from her apartment. Low voices, chanting, a child crying behind the walls. Her landlord has knocked twice. Evelyn doesn't answer the door anymore. She knows what waits behind it. Every mirror in the apartment is covered. Not because she's afraid of what's behind her, but because sometimes when she passes too close, her reflection doesn't move. It only smiles. She tried to end it once. Tried to scream the murmur out of her. Screamed until her throat tore open and her voice cracked like glass. But the silence afterward wasn't peaceful. It was hungry. She spent the next 2 hours in her bathroom, her own voice whispering from the shower drain. 4 makes it whole. The rhyme returns to her now, nightly. Ring around the tree stump, voices underground. Whisper once and he will come, twice and you'll be found. 3 times seals your fate, they say. But 4. Oh, 4, you let him stay. She had only whispered 3 times. But he was still here. So what was the 4th? She thought it was the scream. Or the name. Or her descent into the hollow. But she was wrong. The 4th whisper wasn't hers. It was yours. She sits in the dark now, the doll in her lap. Not Anna. Not her. You. The doll is unfinished. Still faceless. Blank. But she knows the steps now. Knows how to make them whole. Knows the ritual. Sew the limbs. Stitch the lips. Add the voice. Your voice. She's waiting for it. The murmur told her you were listening. Watching. Reading. Following along with each step. That's how it spreads. Not through bites. Not through curses. Through attention. Through your silence. And now, it speaks in your walls. It rides the breath of your computer fan. The stillness between your heartbeats. The hollow hum when you turn off the light tonight and think, this was just a story. But stories don't watch you back, do they? Listen closely now. Do you hear it? The tick between the seconds. The hush beneath your house. The breath behind your shoulder. Shush. There it is. Your 4th whisper. Welcome to Black Hollow. You'll never leave.